All right, so it's about 4 o'clock. So what I would like to do is take a moment to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today and what all this is, since we have quite a few new people. Let me stop sharing so you can see me. So my name is Mark Cormier. I'm the head of training and professional development at the Centro Costarricense Norteamericano, which is, as I said before, a binational center here in Costa Rica. And we organized the National Conference for Teachers of English Costa Rica, among many other events for English professionals, English teaching professionals here in Costa Rica, as well as the region. And every year we have our big event, our national conference. And as an extension of that event, we also have these monthly PD talks or professional development talks. And so we always do them on a Friday afternoon, once a month, about a topic related to English language teaching. And for the last 6 months, we've been doing them online. And it's been really such a nice experience for us to have just broken all the borders and distance limitations. So as I've already mentioned, we have people here from all over Costa Rica, from Mexico, El Salvador, Bolivia, from Pakistan. So how great is that we can have this space where we can share with other people in our field who perhaps are working in very different contexts than we are. So I want to give you a couple of announcements before I turn the microphone over to our speaker for today. As I mentioned before, you can get a digital certificate for participation in this talk, and we send those out over email a couple of days or weeks after the event is over. And to help us out and get your names exactly the way you want them, make sure that your name, as it appears in Zoom, is the way that you would like it to appear in the certificate that we create for you. So if you are currently named Huawei, yes, Erica, great, we can see a PD Talk certificate, that's nice. So if you are currently named in a different way than you would like to be named on your certificate, click where it says participants, and then next to your name, it says more, and you have the option to change your name, okay? So I also want to announce our next PD Talk, which will be about a month from now. We have Dr. Keith Folse from the University of Central Florida. If you went to the NCTE, it's possible that you were in his one of his sessions. He's a grammar guru. He's a teaching expert. He's written over 70 books on language teaching. Very practical, teacher-friendly books. So it's not just pure theory, it's really practical tips. So we're still waiting for the official topic that he's going to talk about, but just feel confident that it's going to be something incredibly relevant for any language teacher. And he's a really engaging speaker. And that hour and a half that you're going to be with him will go by like that, I promise. So I remember at the end of the NCTE, his workshop, everyone was saying, I want another hour, I want more time. And so he has been so generous to donate his time with us again. So we'll be sending out an announcement very soon to let you know how to sign up for this. The other thing that I wanted to share is that we have a community of practice website that we started for the national conference. And here, I'm just changing my screen so you can see it. In this site, we have hosted all of the video recordings from the national conference sessions, as well as our most recent PD talks. So as you can see here, we have the PD talk from last month, Matt's talk on tensions in project design. We have the one from Jair from a couple months ago. You can flip through here. We already have about 30 videos up here, 30 workshops, and I'm sure that you would get a lot out of rewatching them or watching them for the first time. And the other cool thing about this is it's a kind of forum. So if you click on the video, after you watch it, you can give us your opinion, you can share your ideas, and this can turn into another space where between PD Talks, we can stay in touch with each other. So here you would write your comment and you can keep this conversation going. All right, so enough about me. Let's get to our speaker for today. And just let me switch back over. 2 seconds here. All right, so we are going to hear from Jonnathan Elizondo. And let me take you give you a little bit of info about him. So Jonnathan also participated in the National Conference for Teachers of English this year, and his session was really well received. So I know you're in good hands for today. Jonnathan holds a Master's of Arts degree in teaching English as a foreign language and also a BA in primary education with emphasis in English teaching from the University of Costa Rica. He's currently pursuing his licenciatura degree in English teaching at Universidad Americana here in Costa Rica. And Professor Elizondo is also a current candidate to obtain a PhD in education from Universidad Internacional Iberoamericana in Mexico. At present, he works for the Ministry of Public Education and also the Universidad Nacional de Educación a Distancia in the English teaching major, as well as a facilitator, working as a facilitator in the Instituto Cultural Dominico Americano in the Dominican Republic. And he also works as an international examiner for Cambridge Assessment English. So he's a very busy person. He devotes his time and energy seeking ways to enhance his students' learning processes and is especially interested in exploring the use of ICTs to improve students' language skills. As a thought that he strongly identifies with is Albert Einstein's quote, "I never teach my pupils, I only provide the conditions in which they can learn." So here to speak with us today on the topic of tips and tricks to shorten the distance in online teaching, please welcome Jonnathan Elizondo. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Mark, for such a great introduction, and welcome everybody to this speedy talk. Very excited. I see that we have currently 110 people and numbers are going up every moment. So let me just, give me just one moment while I start sharing my screen here. So hopefully you can see it now.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. So our topic for today is tips and tricks to shorten the distance in online teaching. So again, thank you everybody for being here this afternoon. I know it's a Friday afternoon. Again, for some people, it's just 2:30 or 2:40 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Thank you very much for devoting your time to being here, and hopefully we will learn some new things in this session, okay? So let me show you kind of our program for today's speedy talk. We're going to start with the getting to know you activity and also a little or a small warm-up activity. Then we're going to talk about building presence and rapport and some decision making that we have to do. We're going to talk about some tools and explore 5 tools that actually can help us in this process of teaching online and teaching at a distance. And we're going to be also sharing ideas with one another. So by the end of the PD talk, we're going to be actually asking you to get into breakout rooms. Hopefully the breakout rooms will work this time. And so we're going to have some time for you to share your ideas. Let me just get very ready here. I want to see the chat. In case you have any questions, you can actually type them in the chat. If I can address the questions at that specific moment, I will do it. Otherwise, Mark is going to help me collecting some of the questions. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A section. So let's begin by doing this quick warm-up activity. And I don't know if you know some sign language, but we're going to learn some sign language today. So we're going to learn 4 basic letters in the alphabet. And for this, I would really appreciate if you can turn on your cameras, because in a moment I'm going to be to stop sharing my screen, and I want to see your cameras. If you see me sometimes looking to my right, it's because I have another screen there where I can see everybody and it's a little bit more comfortable. So I want to, if you don't know any sign language, we're going to learn these 4 letters and then 2 symbols there. So the first one is A. So I want you to do letter A. And the good thing about sign language is that you can do it with any of your hands. You can do it with your right hand or with your left hand, and there's no problem there. So that is A. Then we're going to do B. Okay, B, it's basically like that, B. All right. Then we're going to do C, which is kind of the letter C, right? And that's the great thing. Like you can do it with any of those hands. Great, I see many people doing it. Then we're going to do letter D. So when you see it in front, it doesn't look like a D, but if I move my hand a little bit, you might see that actually it looks like a D, right? Depending on with the hand that I do it, it looks like a D. So those four, okay, we're going to practice very quickly. I want to, and this is a matter of activating your brain for learning. Maybe this is something new to you, and this is preparing your brain to acquire new knowledge and to get ready for the learning process. So maybe you can do A. Can I see an A in your hands? Great. What about C? Very good. What about B and D? Okay. Now we're going to look at yes. How to say yes. Basically, we move our hand up and down. That is yes. All right. And no, we take our three fingers and we close them. That's no. We move a little bit the hand to the back. That is no. So yes and no. You know, the way I actually learn and I remember always how to say no. I love The Devil Wears Prada. And there is a part in which one of the ladies say like, I already heard this, now I wanna hear this. And so it's basically close your mouth and no talking. So yes and no. All right, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen in this moment. And just remember, A, B, C, D, yes or no. And we're going to play kind of Simon Says. So I'm going to tell you which letter you have to do and you do it. I'm going to start very slow and then I'm going to do it a little faster, okay? So, A, B, C, D, yes, no, D, B, A, no, yes, C. Okay, if you're looking at me in this moment, I want you to do what I say, not what I do. I'm going to try to confuse you. So do as I say, not as I do. All right? So everybody, A, B, no. I see some people saying yes, it's no. Okay, great. C, D, A. All right, I'm going to do it a little faster. A, C, D, no, yes. All right, great, excellent, very good. So let me share my screen again. That was just a brain gym. That's how we call it, a brain activity. It's basically asking our brain to do a little bit over there. So can you see my screen now? Yes? You can say with your hand, yes, if you can see my screen. All right. So actually, we're going to talk today about something that has become the new normal, right? This is actually the new normal. What we're doing right now, what we are actually going or undergoing right now, it's our new normality. It's teaching online, something that many months ago we didn't think was possible. And maybe for some of you, you say like, no, I don't like to teach online. I don't want to do it. I think I will never be an online teacher. And now you are working from home. You are teaching from home. So this has become the new normal for us. And in this process, we might have a couple of questions. I have 4 questions that I was wondering at some point. So my first question is, what am I actually doing? Because there are a lot of concepts out there. Am I teaching online? Am I doing virtual teaching, distance teaching, e-learning, e-teaching, all these concepts that are very similar, very separate, at the same time, very different. So that might be one of the questions, because we might say, if I am doing online teaching, then what is the procedure? But if I am doing distance teaching, is there something different, or do I do the same, right? Another question that we might be asking ourselves is, are my students learning and am I doing it right? Okay. Some people don't believe in online learning or distance learning, but it has proven to be just as face-to-face learning and face-to-face teaching. if done correctly, people actually get to learn exactly the same things, right? Am I doing it right? I am learning, I am going to learning to use Teams, to use Zoom, to use Google Meet. So am I doing things right? Are my students getting interested here? And the last question is, how do I make it more appealing? Those are four of the main questions that we have, all right? So before I go into detail and into trying to answer some of those questions, we're going to do some Mentimeter. If you haven't done Mentimeter before, I want you to go to menti.com and enter this code that you see on the screen, 533835-7, or you can also use the QR code that you see on the screen, or I am actually going to try to share with you my just one moment. I'm going to share with you in the chat. Okay. So give me just one quick moment. And this link I'm going to share in the chat is actually the link that you can use to get instant access. So once you are there in the Mentimeter, I'm going to move there so we can start doing our job. All right. So I am going to see here how many people. Maybe you can type, you can tap the heart once you are in Mentimeter, so I can see how many people. You can type it how many, as many times as you want, but only one time will count over there. So I already see 48 people, 50 people. If you haven't used Mentimeter that before, I really recommend it for real-time feedback, okay? We can give our students, we can get feedback from our students, we can show results in real time, and that is amazing. Okay, so I have some questions for you here in Mentimeter. The first question is, where are you from? I want to know where you're from. I know you already type it in the chat, but I would really like to know where you're from. You can type there. I see Chihuahua, Cartago, Costa Rica, Mexico, San Jose, Salvador, Ticolandia, great, Pakistan, Tres Rios. One of my students used to say Three Rivers the other day. San Carlos, okay, very good. Many people from different places, Oregon, Mexico, amazing. Guanacaste, Coronado. So people from all over the country and all over the world, which is great. Okay, a little bit more about yourself. What population do you teach? Do you teach preschool, elementary, high school, adults? What's the population that you teach? So I can see here that adults is the one winning. Then we have high school, elementary, and last but not least, preschool with only 2 teachers at this point. Great. Okay, so most of you teach adults. And then we have kind of similar numbers for elementary and high school. The next one, had you taught online before COVID-19? I would like to know if before COVID-19, had you taught online? And I see the bigger number, just as I expected, going to the no. You see 61 people. So you can actually see that this is very new to many of us. Now, what do you like best about teaching online? Now that you are teaching online, what do you like best? What is something that you say, I really like this about teaching online? I would really like to know what are those things that you consider, okay? I agree with that one. Shy students participate. I was actually talking to one of my colleagues the other day, telling her that I think that shy students are participating more now than before, probably because they feel safer. I don't know. Experiencing the new scenario, the tools. If you haven't used one of these word clouds before, the word that you see the biggest is the one that you're repeating the most. So it seems that tools, resources, creativity are the 3 words that you are repeating. I see multimedia material, flexible time. I love that. I love that flexible time. I can actually tell you about this flexible time that I went to run some errand right before this workshop, and my motorcycle just stopped in the middle of the highway. I had to call a tow truck and then got home just on time. I think if this had been face-to-face, I wouldn't have been able to do it, to make it on time. Now, what do you find most difficult about teaching at a distance? We saw the good, now we're going to move towards the kind of bad, the difficult part. Prepare classes. I wonder about that, preparing classes. In my case, I feel it's difficult to prepare classes because it takes more time, it takes longer, right? Doing activities, social distance. The next question that I have for you, from 1 to 5, how comfortable do you feel using the following? Using Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, or any other platform for video conferencing, using collaborative documents, using quizzes, Kahoot, and Bamboozle, or websites to prepare games for your students, and using Mentimeter, Poll Everywhere, or Direct Poll, which are tools to have real-time results in polls. So I see that people are feeling very comfortable about Zoom, Teams, Meet, or any of those tools. All right. And the one that you feel a little less comfortable is using tools to get responses from your students in real time. Thinking about your last lesson taught, what would be a change you want to make? If you think back to that last lesson that you taught maybe today or yesterday or last week, what is something that you say, I want to change this? This I didn't like. We teachers, I think, are very critical about ourselves, and sometimes we kind of are very hard on ourselves. Yeah, I see time, student interaction. Okay, the test. Creating activities that would involve students a little bit more student interaction, engaging activities, feedback. Time again, there's somebody who wrote also time, one more time. Make it shorter. Some people might experience it a little bit the other way around, like how do I make it longer? Because maybe you plan a class and you expect to spend 1 hour and then you finish in 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So, which is or what is one successful activity you had in your last online class? One successful activity, something that you say, I really like that. I think I'm going to do it in the near future, or I'm going to do it with my next group. Dancing a song, talent show, online Jeopardy, Kahoot, interactive games, scavenger hunt. Very good, creating a mind map. So I see that even though you said at the beginning that this is the first time teaching online, I see a lot of great activities here. Memory games, interactive games, right? I wonder how that talent show went, because it might be very difficult to plan a talent show, an online talent show, and have everybody engaged. Padlet activity, pair work in breakout rooms. Excellent. We're going to move on. Okay. Let me go back to the presentation. So now that I know a little bit more about you, before I move forward, I want to use this this concept here. And this is by Garcia Aretio. Garcia Aretio is a PhD from, he's a doctor from Spain, and he has a lot of experience. He has published a lot about distance education. So when I said at the beginning the topic, and when I said the topic later, after I sent it to Doña Lily and to Mark, and it was already published out there, and I started doing more reading, I started wondering, am I really going to talk about online teaching? And so talking about all these different concepts, I came out to using this idea from Garcia Aretio. And he says that e-learning and online learning are no other than a format of distance education supported on digital technologies and ICTs, information and communication technologies. And this is the concept I want to use today for this whole talk. Every time I mention e-learning or online learning or virtual learning or distance teaching, I am talking basically about the fact that we are separated physically from our students. And that is what I want you to think about. I want you to think about, okay, no matter what concept, no matter what word he's saying at this moment, I'm going to think about that physical separation, that distance. And that is why I thought of the topic as shortening the distance. There is a huge distance. I am here and I have some people in Pakistan, I have some people in Cartago, I have some people in Guanacaste. And so the physical distance is big, but how do I make it shorter, right? How do I shorten that distance? So after that, I found 7 requisites that we need for distance education. And this was very, very interesting. This actually came out with for a research that I'm conducting with one of my colleagues at Tech. And we found this great article about 7 requisites for distance education. The first one is that there should be teacher and student motivational relationship. So whatever we do in our classes, whatever we do for our students, we need to make sure we build motivation. Why? Because we are now isolated. I am in my home. Maybe nobody at home knows English other than the language proficiency that I have, and maybe that is not enough. So I need to build as a teacher that relationship that has to do with teacher-student motivation. Another characteristic is that there should be self-regulation and self-instruction. Why? Basically because our students are at home, they have to do so much work on their own, and in March, just as we did in March, many of our students had not experienced any distance education, any online or virtual or whatsoever. So they have been learning to self-regulate and self-instruct. What it means is basically I need to make sure that the time I have is enough for learning, right? Because we all know that if you have an online course and every Wednesday you have to submit different things, it's very difficult to keep up with time. And many times we can see it from our part as students, but also as teachers. We see students sending us last minute things, submitting last minute work, because it's very difficult to self-regulate. I am at home, maybe you have children, maybe you have other brothers and sisters, depending on your situation, right? Or maybe I have some students that they have only one computer and there are 3 different students in the house. And one of them is in 6th grade, one of them is in 1st grade, one of them is in 3rd grade. So they have to share the computer and it's very difficult. So we need to make sure we teach our students how to self-regulate and self-instruct. Then we need to provide adequate feedback. Why? I mean, we always need to provide adequate feedback. But what it means by adequate feedback here in these 7 requisites is that that feedback needs to be clear enough, because probably they're going to be receiving feedback from the teacher in a written way or via recording, and they cannot ask questions at that moment. They will need to send an email to the teacher, or they need to ask in the question and answer forum in your LMS. So we need to make sure our feedback is as clear as possible. And that is what it means, or what this person means by adequate. Friendship-like relationship. And I really like this one. I always remember a phrase, and if I am not wrong, it was Chomsky, the one who said, When you try to become a buddy, you become a nobody. That's what he said. And if I am not wrong, it was Chomsky. But in here, it was very interesting for me to see friendship-like relationship. And this kind of makes sense because my students really need to be eager to see me every week. It's not like it was before in school. Many times they are forced to be at school. And if they don't like my classes, if they don't like my rules, etc. But now it's friendship-like relationship. That rapport is very important. And more than the student wanting to be here, it's also the way I provide that feedback to the student. I motivate the student. I need to understand the student a lot. And this friendship is also because now we become a little bit more equal. I mean, in the past, the teacher was the center, but now the student is really the center in this process. And so they become self-regulated, they become self-instructed. That means they are taking their responsibility for their own learning. We give up control. And that is when we become a little bit more like friends, right? That we are in the same position here. I am just a guide. I'm going to provide all the activities. Then we need to have dialogue to get meaningful learning, which means that communication between the teacher and the student needs to go back and forth. It's not just that I send feedback and that's it. I need to be available for my students at different times. We need to use technological tools for permanent communication. And you're going to be surprised when I show you the date of these ideas, because this is not 2020, okay? And this person was already talking about technological tools for permanent communication. And finally, well-planned and organized process. It's not just that I'm going to sit here and welcome my students and whatever happens, happens. I need to plan my classes. I really need to be organized with time, with materials, with everything that I need at that moment. And you see that this was published in 1985. So when I saw that part about technological tools for permanent communication, that really surprised me, because back in 1985, it's not that this is that old, because I was born in 1985, but it's a little bit old for talking about technology, okay? So now I want you to type in the chat and answer this question. I'm going to give you some moments. What happened, or what aspects do you consider when planning online interactions? So when you are there at home and you start planning your classes, what do you take into account? What aspects do you take into account? So I would like to see and read from the chat here. I see content, learning, engagement, time, activities, the book, the context. Very good. Plan A, plan B, and plan C, very important. Make interactive activities. Yes, it's totally different. Like right now, I'm trying to have certain interaction with you, but it's actually very difficult because you are more than 100 people. But with 10, 20, 25 students, there should be more interaction, dynamic activities. Linguistic proficiency, very important. Great. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of my ideas here. Maybe you're thinking about contents, and I saw that in the chat. You're thinking about time. How much time do I have? 1 hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours. I don't know how much time I have or you have. Skills. What are the skills that I want to actually develop with my students? Evaluation. How am I going to evaluate my students? Is it going to be formative, summative? Is it going to be diagnostic? The goals, okay? What are the goals that we have for this class? And now this that we have here are basically things that we also consider when we are in face-to-face classes. What happens is that we need to be very selective in this case, right? It's a little, it becomes, I think, sometimes overwhelming, because I really want to make sure that what I present to my students is going to have the effect that I desire, okay? So teaching online doesn't have to be emotionally distant. And that is what I mean by shortening the distance. One of my favorite authors, Stephen Krashen, even though some people have controversy there and they say these are not his ideas, etc. Stephen Krashen, in his input hypothesis, talks about the affective filter. And he says that the more or the higher the affective filter is, the lower our students' learning will be. So if we want meaningful learning to happen, our students need to be in a very relaxed environment. They need to be, they don't need to be anxious, right? So sometimes, because I have this camera, because I have this computer, because I have hundreds of miles away or hundreds of miles in between me and my students, I place this emotional barrier over there. And I become this person that is just like, hello class, good morning, how are you? You connected? Great, we're going to start. So this is the first activity. I want you to open your book to page number 5. And so we are very distant emotionally. In this case, we need to be very close to our students, okay? So in this moment, I want you to go to a Padlet. So I'm going to share with you the link in the chat. If you want, you can also use the QR code that we have here. So you're going to go to that Padlet. I'm going to give you just some moments for you to scan the code if you need. And there is a question in that Padlet. So let me just move to the Padlet. And it's called engaging emotionally. How do you engage your students emotionally while online? That is what you need to answer in the Padlet. So I'm going to show here in case you still are scanning the code. And in a moment, I will go to see the results in the Padlet. Remember that you also have the direct link. If you haven't used Padlet before, you just click in the plus button and there you can start actually typing your ideas. How do you engage emotionally with your students? What are your experiences about it? I see there, you can see if you haven't used Padlet before, I really recommend it. I can see real-time things happening here. So I see people writing jokes, oversharing, being vulnerable myself. I love that word, vulnerable, showing my human side. Joking, having music together, play music in the background. A lot of great ideas. Check in with Google Forms, music again, breaking the ice and getting their trust, being friendly, asking about their activities, singing and discussion, connecting emotionally. Placing myself in my students' shoes. I love that. We need to remember that we are all struggling. We are all on the same boat. We are all learning. We're all having a learning curve here. It's not just me, the one that is struggling to learn how to use Zoom. At the same time, I use this Google Slides, and at the same time, I look at the chat. My students are also struggling out there. The wheel of names to participate. Very nice. Okay, so maybe we can go back to the presentation now. Great ideas. So I want to share with you some of my ideas, some of the things, and these are not only my ideas, some of them are my ideas, but also things that I have found from doing some research and what some people suggest, okay? So the first thing is think about your early birds. I really like every time I attend one of these sessions at Centro Cultural, the PD Talks or the National Conference, because they always let you in a little early, 10 minutes before the time, so you can get all set up and everything. But there is something important, and I hope you noticed that with Mark today. he actually engaged people from the beginning with simple things like, please, everybody, I want you to write on the chat where you're from. I want you to write what population you teach. So you start having that interaction from the moment the student gets into the lesson, into the classroom. Remember that even though we're using Zoom, we're using Meet, we're using Teams, this is our classroom. It's a virtual classroom at this point. So engaging the students and thinking about the early birds. What am I going to ask my students? Because there is always in every single class, just as when we were face-to-face, that you get there at 5:30, your class is at 6, and at 5:30 you already have a student, or at 5:45 you already have some students, as well as you have students arriving at 6:05 when you have already started. But what do you do with those early birds? Immediately you start engaging them. What I have found very interesting and what I do with those people, with those students, is that sometimes I play some background music so they at least know that there is something happening, right? It's very uncomfortable when you get into a meeting and there's no noise over there. You're like wondering, is it that my microphone or my speakers are not working? Is there something wrong with my earphone? What is going on here? Is somebody speaking, right? So you can actually start playing some music and they will actually check that everything is working in terms of sound. You can post some questions. I see here that you write like asking them about their health, current events. Sometimes I post a question. I want you to write 2 activities you did today before coming to this class. And so they are engaged there, all right? The next idea is to ask genuine questions. It's not asking questions just to ask questions. It's being genuine. It's being really thinking about your students as people. Asking people and saying like, oh, I already know that Tobias works at UNED. So maybe when he gets to my class, I can say, hello, Tobias, welcome. So how is everything going at UNED? Like he feels, oh, the teacher is looking at me as a human being. And even though we are distant right now, again, emotionally, we are close. We see the teacher's interest. And again, maybe many of these things that I'm saying right now, you're saying, oh my God, but this is what I actually do when I am face to face. What happens is that many times when we are online, we kind of forget that. And so it's very important that even though we are online, we still need to generate those environments in which our students feel cared for, they feel taken into account, and they feel they are not just a number. They are not just a picture in that Zoom meeting, all right? A warm-up activity, that is very important. Always think of a warm-up activity. I have actually done warm-up activities like the one I did with you today with the hands, and that is basically activating your brain. If you're working with children, these brain games are very important. When you have like with one hand you do one thing and with the other hand you do another thing, and your brain is actually getting ready to learn. You're using that warm-up. You're adding some fun as well. I saw while I was doing this simple warm-up, I saw in the cameras that some of you were kind of laughing and struggling there, but you were like, oh, very nice. I'm going to try it, right? Another is adapting those warm-up activities. The other day I started doing a warm-up activity, and for this, I'm going to do it with you. So I'm going to stop sharing, and you can look at all the cameras. I'm going to select one of the people that have the camera right now open, and I'm going to start describing what I spy. So I spy with my eye, and you have to write in the chat if you can spot who the person is, okay? So let me just find one of the cameras here. All right, I already have somebody. I spy with my eye a fan. This is a fan, but this is one of those fans that you put on the floor. I spy with my eye, I think it's a bookcase that I see there. All right, so let me just pin this video so I can see it. Okay, I spy with my eye bookshelf. I spy with my eye a picture, and this picture has a river. Okay, no, it's not Gabriela. I spy with my eye flowers. All right. Yes, very good. It's Christine. Okay. So you see that actually you are engaging your students. At the moment I said, I see a fan, I noticed Christine's face. Her face actually changed. She was like, oh my God, it's me. I know it's probably me, right? And that is something that happens with our students as well. Okay. So sorry about that. Let me just go back. Okay. And you can also ask your students, what do you spy? Okay. What do you spy, for example, in terms of what I see, what I have on my background? Right now, I don't have anything but this virtual background, but I can actually share a little bit about my home and they feel connected like, oh, the teacher is also at home. And sometimes, you know, students, mostly uh, young children, they believe teachers live in a bubble. They believe teachers don't have a home, they don't have an office, they don't have a bed, they don't have a dog, anything. So they feel very connected in those cases, okay? Um, Individual touch point is very important. Telling your students there is going to be this time during the week or this place where you can come and ask questions, just as we do when we are in school. Students know that they can come to us during the break, they can come to us before class. So you maybe want to use Calendly, for example, and they can just say there, I need 15 minutes with you, teacher, on this day, and you're going to be there. Something like office hours that we usually have at some universities, and it's being available for students to be able to answer questions. It's very interesting because I have told my students on Fridays, I have a schedule for individual touch point. And so they sent a request. It's not that I'm going to be in Teams and they just show up. Sometimes they send a request, and it's incredible to see fourth graders sending requests. And when I get there, they have these great questions about the guías de trabajo autónomo, the autonomous guides that we're sending them here in Costa Rica. They say like, teacher, you know what, this part I didn't understand how to do. And you actually get to help the student individually, but also you get all this feedback. In next class, you can actually say, you know what, many people were asking about these things. I can actually help you with that, okay? Another thing that is important is looking at the camera. If you have noticed, I try very hard. It's really difficult, I know, but I always have my camera on. I encourage my students. I know because of legislation and maybe like in Costa Rica, for example, because of legislation, minor students cannot be forced to open their cameras, but I really encourage them. And I go again into the emotional part. I tell them that I miss them, which is really, really true. Like I miss them a lot and I would like to see you. I would like to feel that I'm talking to somebody, not to talking to the screen. So I'm always looking at the cameras. I'm always asking them to do some things in the cameras. I'm always talking to them. Like I say, oh, I see Valentina Mendez here. She just got the book. She just got, right? So you actually see their faces. You see like, oh, the teacher is looking at me. It's great. And also when you see, when you look at the camera, I like my computer because I actually see this little green point there. And I see that if I look at that green point, you feel I'm looking into your eyes. And that is very important. That is part of communication, effective communication. Another thing is the background and the noise, okay? So for this one, I'm going to just go into my virtual background and stop sharing my virtual background for a moment. So you can see that in my background right now, I have things that are very like subtle, right? You don't see anything there. You see probably something like UNED over there. And I have here like my whiteboard. I have some things here like to decorate. When I am working with adults and when I am working with my fourth graders, I have noticed that this doesn't cause any problem. But when I am working with my first graders, this is very distracting. They raise their virtual hand, and when I say, yes, you have a question, they say, teacher, is that an Elmo that you have there? So they are paying more attention to my background than to my lesson. So we need to be very careful with that background noise. We need to try, I know our houses have become actually our houses have become the classrooms now, right? Our houses are now open to everybody. and maybe you're teaching from your living room, you're teaching from your bedroom, you're teaching from a part in your kitchen, but try as much as possible to try to eliminate that background noise. I always make sure that my dogs are outside. They love barking and they misbehave when I am in classes. That is the moment they decide that it's a good moment to bark. And so I make sure that they are outside the house when I am teaching. I make sure I tell everybody, whomever is in the house, I tell them, you know what, I'm going to be in a class right now. Please don't go into this room until I get out. I'm going to close the door. Letting people know that you are busy, they understand and they will not interrupt you. But if you don't tell them, if you just disappear, at some point they're going to be coming and looking for you. I know, and I empathize a lot with mothers. I know you do a great job and huge work, because if you have children at home, I don't have them, but I cannot imagine how life would be. They always need their mother more than their father, and they will always be looking for their mom, even though she's busy. They don't understand what busy is because my mom is at home. But as much as possible, control background and noise, okay? Two more things that I decided to separate from that. One is talking about routines. So make sure you have routines. You tell your students, we are always going to begin with this, we continue with that, and we finish with this other thing. For example, with my students right now, I have found very useful. I always have a slide. When as soon as they come in, they see a slide that reminds them to turn off the microphones, to turn on their camera if possible, to use the chat, to raise their hand. After that, when I start with a warm-up. Then they know I'm going to do some teaching, some developing. We watch a video, I explain a little bit, we use some activities, then we go into production, and they already know that. And so they are expecting that. They already know that if in the first part, in the first slide, if they see a notebook and a pen, they know that they're going to need a notebook and a pen during the class. So establishing those routines make the process easier for us and for the students, and they feel in a safer environment. And someone mentioned this before, vulnerability. Be yourself. Mistakes are a human quality. We cannot avoid that. If you just find it very difficult to cope with all the technology, if you start having a problem, be sincere with your students. Don't try to put some makeup on it. Just tell your students, give me just a moment. I'm having some technical issues here. I'm going to mute myself for a moment and stop the video. I'll be right back with you. Give me 1 minute, give me 2 minutes. Students will understand. If something happens, I'm going to share with you something quite embarrassing. The other day I was giving this talk to a group of teachers. Those were at around 60, 70 teachers. And then I shared, I usually prepare tiny URLs because they are different, easy for people to copy into their phones. So I prepared these tiny URLs. I checked them twice. Before the presentation, I checked them as well. And when I sent the first tiny URL to teachers in that conference, they get an inappropriate, really inappropriate website. I don't know how that happened, but then someone wrote to me in the chat privately, like, you know what, I'm getting this picture there, and it was just like a picture. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I understand. And I immediately addressed, people didn't want to talk about it. People didn't want to tell me because probably they felt they would embarrass me. So I told them, like, you know, someone told me you're getting this inappropriate content. I really apologize. I'm going to send you the link right now. And so I went, I looked at it, I apologized. At the end, I apologized as well. But I was being myself. I was being honest. I told them it was not my intention. But if I just get really frustrated and I don't know what to do, things get worse and worse and worse. And people get anxious. Students get anxious. Students really value honesty. When you tell your students, you know what, I'm going to mute myself a moment. I'm going to stop the video. Give me just 1 minute. They value that more than if you mute and stop your video without telling them, okay? So be yourself. Show some vulnerability. They also need to know If you're trying a new technology, let your students know. You can tell them, you know what, I'm going to try something new today. I haven't tried it before. I did some try here with my phone with some colleagues, but I don't know if that is going to work with 20 people right now. So let's try it out, okay? And if it doesn't work, they already know because you were honest with them. You showed some vulnerability in that case. Now, before we go a little bit into more practice and tools and all of that, another thing that we need to talk about is this decision making. Do I do things synchronously or asynchronously? Do I do it everybody at the same time, or what do I do for them on their own? So if we talk about synchronous activities, learning happens at the same time. Everybody is here right now, and all of you are listening to the same thing. All of you are doing the same activities. So learning is happening at the same time in this case. The next part is that real-time interaction. There is teacher-student interaction and student-student interaction that is happening at the same time. Everybody is on the same page. And also structure is required. As I mentioned before, it needs to be very structured. It's not just that, oh, now that I'm doing online, I don't know what I'm going to teach today. I'll just get into the class and let's ask them, what page in the book are we? And maybe we can solve some things. I personally believe that teaching online or teaching through a computer requires more structure and more organization because, for example, maybe I print a set of flashcards, and with that set of flashcards in a face-to-face environment, I can do 5 different activities because I can give the flashcards to the students. They can come to the board, they can stand up, they can sit down. But if I have the flashcards here with me, I might be able to do maybe 2 activities at the most. So more activities are required, and there is a lot of structure involved. Very important, keep it simple. Don't try to overwhelm your students with a lot of activities, a lot of technology. Keep it simple. Sometimes simplicity is the key to success in our classes. At MEP, we have this saying now in the new programs that say less is more. And that is something I agree. Sometimes asking your students, today we're going to use the notebook, and maybe you don't have a PowerPoint presentation, you just have instructions, you show them some puppets, you show them something on the board that you have behind you, you ask them to write something very simple, it simulates a real class where students are there, they use their notebook somehow, they share in the chat, they can go to breakout rooms and work in groups a little bit and write in their notebooks a little bit. Sometimes students need that because otherwise they feel overwhelmed. And if we go to the asynchronous part, we're talking about flipped learning. So flipped learning allows for classroom time to deepen understanding and discussion, basically. Why? Because I give the subject to my students to study at home, they do some practice, and when they come into class, I can use that already because they have some background knowledge. I don't start from scratch, right? The next part is that we need to use the learning management system efficiently and effectively. So, and by learning management system, I know we usually refer to Blackboard, Moodle, or Canvas. But in our case, if you're using Google Classroom, if you're using Teams, that is also somehow your learning management system. There is where you're going to be putting all the work, the announcements, and everything. So make sure you take advantage of it, okay? And now I want to share with you, let me just make sure I'm sharing the sound. I want to share with you a video, a very short video of an activity I sent my students. It's like 2 minutes, and we were studying some topics there. And actually, it was very interesting because my students, it was an introduction to the topic. I sent the video to them, and when we were in class, I felt it was very important, okay? They really understood the subject. So let me show it to you. With this material, we are going to learn about natural treasures, places and people we can find at the park, especially national parks. There are many national parks in Costa Rica. There is Corcovado National Park in the Osa Peninsula. There is Arenal Volcano National Park in Alajuela. And Santa Rosa National Park is located in Guanacaste. What can I find at a national park? Let's see some examples. This is a beach. Beach. This is a river. River. This is a waterfall. Waterfall. This is a picnic area. Picnic area. This is a volcano. Volcano. These are trees. Trees. This is a mountain. Mountain. This is a trail. Trail. To describe what you see in a picture or a place, we use there is for singular, only one, and there are for plural. There is an apple. There are apples. For example, at Yellowstone Park, there is a waterfall. There are mountains. There are trees. Okay, so you see that actually
for us to see.
So actually my students saw that. It's a very short video. I asked them to look at it, and then I provided them with some exercises as well. When they came to class, they already knew, and I found it very easy to continue talking about there is and there are, because they already knew what we were talking about. They already had some background knowledge. It was really easy. They were participating more. So that is something. One more thing that we need to make sure in that synchronous and asynchronous, in that decision making, is that we need to prioritize. And by prioritizing, I mean, what is the intention of this activity? If you have a reading activity, for example, and that reading activity is reading comprehension, is it worth to do that reading comprehension in my 40-minute online class? Or is it better if I give them a very good pre-activity and in which they learn vocabulary, and then they do it at home and they submit it somehow, or they come to class only with questions about vocabulary? We check the activities that are at the end. So I would probably, or I'd rather do that asynchronously. However, if the reading is very important to understand certain things of the class as a previous to the class, maybe I want to really focus on that reading in class and then continue with some activities. So we need to learn to prioritize that. In prioritizing, I also think about oral, for example. If my oral activities, what is the purpose of this oral activity? If this is oral production, meaning I'm going to be talking to you, is it worth spending all the class, everybody presenting on their own? Or maybe they can record a Flipgrid, they can record an audio, a video, and they can send it to me via WhatsApp. I check it, I give them feedback. However, if the activity is for oral interaction or communication, I'm going to need somebody else to interact with me. So oral production or oral interaction. If it's oral interaction, let's spend some time in class. If it's oral production, maybe you can do it on your own. And here we have the zone of proximal development. So basically, we should prioritize for our classes. We need to prioritize all of those things that are high challenge and require high scaffolding, because those things are going to be, if I send them home to do that high challenge activity, but I don't provide them scaffolding, you see that we get frustration and anxiety, okay? So in this case, the high challenge and high scaffolding, they probably need the teacher to be there, helping them, guiding them, answering questions. Those are the activities that we need to prioritize to our 40 minutes, 2 hours, or 3 hours lessons. And then the other activities that are either low challenge and maybe low scaffolding, or low challenge with some scaffolding, but low challenge at the end, in the end, they can be actually sent to do at home. And maybe that will actually increase the challenge, because if they are low challenge to do it with the teacher, maybe doing it by myself, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. And there again, we're talking about the I+1 from crashing in the zone of proximal development here, okay? So now we're going to look at some tools. You know that I love technology, and I cannot I cannot finish this talk without showing you some of the tools that I use with my students that I consider that are very important and very interesting. So let me just show you here. The first one that we're going to look at, and this one is just looking at because there's nothing a lot that we can do like interaction right now. It's called Classroom Screen. So this is Classroom Screen. If you see, it's basically a screen that I have that I can actually manipulate as a classroom. So what I can do with this is that I can actually, for example, change the background. I don't like that background right now. I really like animated. I love this one that is quite quiet and you see the movement there. So I'm going to use that one. And then what you have is a lot of different tools over there. You can have random names. You can write the names of the students there, and you can just have the system choose. So it's not the teacher's fault that you have to talk and you have to share. If you want, you can have dice. So I can have 1, 2, or 3 dice over here, okay? And I can actually do that for certain activities. I can also have a sound level, and this one is very useful when we are in the school. So you see that this measures the sound level, how high is the sound right now. QR code, sometimes we wanna share a website and we don't know how to do a QR code. You just copy and paste the URL here on top, and it generates the QR code for you. So the students scan it with their phones and they go to there. You can draw just as in any whiteboard, right? And you can also type over here. You can have work symbols. You can tell your students, this is a moment of silence, okay? Or in this moment, we are going to be kind of a little bit more quiet. This moment is for asking somebody, okay? And finally, working together. So you can actually show the symbols to your students, okay? You can make it bigger if you want, you see? So your students see it very well. Is it free? Yes, it is free. There are some things that are, you can pay for it, but I find it for that. You can have a traffic light. What we're doing right now, is it green? Is it yellow, or is it red? So you can find your own symbols and you can tell your students, okay, if you see the red traffic light here, and I do this with my students sometimes, mostly the little ones that are very visual, I tell them if the traffic light is in red, it's because everybody needs to have their microphones off because we're doing some individual work. Now, when you see it in yellow, it's because you should be finishing up what you're doing. And if you see it in green, it's time to participate. You can raise your hands and you can start participating. I can start calling people and you participate, okay? You can have a timer. So this timer actually works like, I'm going to put it to 0 so you listen to the sound. Okay, you hear the sound there, and it's basically, you set it up how many minutes, and then when it reaches 0, your students are going to hear that, okay? You can have a stopwatch. I say, okay, Carlos, you're going to start sharing with us, and you have 30 seconds. You cannot stop talking before the 30 seconds. So I start, and you talk and talk until 30 seconds are up, and then I tell you your time is up, okay? You can show your students a clock as well, just as in any classroom. You can have the clock there so they actually see it's 7:08. We're supposed to finish at around, 17. We're supposed to finish at around 5. I can have it here, 5:08. We're supposed to finish at around 5:30. So I need to do many activities. And then the calendar, you can show the calendar to your students. I love this one because it's very visual. You have a lot of different tools in just one place, okay? Of course, I won't tell you in this part, the part of the 5 activities or the 5 websites, I won't share with you Mentimeter and Padlet because we already experienced that, okay? But those are also part of the ones that I love. This other one, it's a whiteboard, okay? This is whiteboard.fi. And basically what you do is you don't need an account. You just come here, you create a new class, you write your name over there, and you create the class. So you share with your students this link over here or the QR code as well. You can share with your students, okay? So I'm going to share it right now over there. In the chat is there. You can enter the whiteboard. And I want you just to experience. You can do it in a phone. You can do it in your computer. If you want to type, just type with the A. There is the A for text, or you can just choose the pen and start writing. I won't be able to see what you're writing until you finish. So if you're typing something with a text tool, you type it there, and once you finish, you click somewhere outside. So I'm able to actually see what you are doing over there, okay? I can also use this one as my whiteboard. As a teacher, I can have a whiteboard. So again, students in this transition from face-to-face to virtual, they still feel like, oh, there is something over there. There is something I can look at, right? The whiteboard in that case. Another one, it's Bamboozle. I want you to type in the chat yes or no, or you can show me with your hands the symbols that we learned today. Yes or no. Have you used Bamboozle before? I know it sounds weird. Maybe you're like, what is that? Okay. Yeah, I see many people that haven't used it. Have you played Jeopardy? Do you know about Jeopardy? Bamboozle is a website to create Jeopardy. I'm going to show you one that I created for my students at UNED the other day. And this was a warm-up activity. So basically, you see that once you create like these cards. Once you create the cards, you actually have different options. You can play, you can study, you can look at them as a slideshow, or you can have questions. So you basically can share this with your students for them to study as well in their own time. So let me show you the slideshow. For example, you see that educational research, that's the topic or course. So I wrote, what is triangulation? And if you double click, you're going to see, okay, the answer to that question, okay? So if I want, I can go back and now I'm going to play. I'm just going to show you. So how many teams do you want? 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. How many questions, okay? And this is done with the whole group. You don't do it like on your cell phone. This is just as if you had it on a screen and you conduct the activity. You can also give this to breakout rooms. So you say, you're going to play this, go to the breakout rooms and play it together there. And what I really like about this one is that you can give partial credit. There is a timer that you can have for each of the questions. The pass button, they can actually say like, oh no, I pass it to the next team. A colorful grid, and the one I love is the penalty. I usually, at higher levels, I say lose points. If you answer wrong, you lose points, okay? So once we go to the questions, you see that I have 12 questions, but I have 16 spots here. It's because there are 4 of them that have some power-ups. And those power-ups are usually you win 20 points, or you choose who loses 10 points. Or you can steal points from a team. Which team do you want to steal the points from? So does it work for first graders? I think it does, actually. You can actually have it. I mean, you prepare the material. You are the one that include all the questions there, all the pictures, the vocabulary that you want. And then you can ask your students. You can play it just as one team, for example, just for fun. So we have one team, we are all one team, and let's see how many questions can we get right. So when somebody answers, I am going to do that, okay? All the links are going to be in the PDF that Mark will share with you in the end. So don't worry about that, okay? But it's bamboozle.com. Another one, it's Lingro. Lingro is a dictionary. I like Lingro to help my students with their self-study. So what I do is that I share them. I'm going to show you here. I already have it set up. So you see that this is Lingro, and what you see here is the Tico Times, which is an English website in Costa Rica, right? But basically when you go to lingro.com, this is the only thing. It says the coolest dictionary known to hombre, that's Lingro. And here what you do is that you type the website that you want to, basically it's converting a website into a dictionary. I choose what type of dictionary do I want. Do I want translation? Or in this case, English dictionary. I click next. The only thing is that it doesn't work with every single website. You need to try it first and make sure it works. And here you can see that I am reading this and I say, you know what? I don't know what real, let's say recreation. I don't know what recreation means. So I just click on recreation and I get the definition. It says recreation, an activity such as play that diverts, amuses, or stimulates. So every single word that I see here, I can click on the word, okay? And I can actually get it, get the definition. The Tico Times free? Yes, the Tico Times online is free. At least I haven't found any problems with that so far. I don't know if they have a pro version. And yes, basically any activity. Like if I want to go, you see, I want to go to this link instead of the dictionary. I place my mouse, and it says click here to open. So I click here and it will open again. I can start reading this, and any word, I can say, oh, this word, travelers. I have here travelers. It doesn't work with PDFs. It only works with websites. So we need to provide the websites. And again, my recommendation, try the websites before you send it to the students. If you want, for example, once you have the website uploaded, like for example, this one here, you actually go on top and you copy the whole URL, and that's what you're going to share with your students. So you make sure they immediately go to the Tico Times, the news that you chose, and it's in Lingro already. So it's a great dictionary, all right? And another one that we're going to look at, and someone talked about it before, and for this, you're going to be using your chats. It's Will Decide. So Will Decide is basically a wheel. You go down, and here you actually build your wheel. You write whatever you want here. You can write up to 100 choices. And once you are ready, you go to apply wheel changes. If you want to save this wheel, you copy the URL, you save it, and this wheel will be there forever. Okay? Now, my thing is we're going to use the chat to talk about our favorites. So I'm going to give you like 5 seconds after we see the results. So what is your favorite? And you type it in the chat. What is your favorite place? So type in the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. What is your favorite song? Type your favorite song. Okay, hello, Bohemian Rhapsody, Firework, The Climb, Angie. Very good. Another one. What is your favorite food? Your favorite food? Ceviche. I love ceviche. Sushi, fish, pasta, gallo pinto. Very good. Spaghetti. What is your favorite artist? Any artist. Let's see. The Beatles, Celine Dion, Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift. Okay, great. So you see that basically this will decide. You can even put certain conversation topics, and you can say, okay, today for a warm up, we're going to talk about, and then you let the wheel decide. You can also give your students this link. Once you have it ready, you send them to breakout rooms and you ask them to actually use the wheel and talk about the questions that are there in no particular order, okay? So those are my tools that I wanted to share with you today. And now we're going to go to our breakout rooms. Hopefully it works. I think it will. So you have there a QR code, and before we go to the breakout rooms, let me send in the chat. I'm going to send it. This is a Padlet. So it's again a Padlet. The reason why I chose a Padlet is because I was reading in some of the tools, like for example, this whiteboard that I showed you. If we tend to use a Jamboard or some other whiteboards, usually the number of people is limited. So only like 50 people, only, or after 50 people, you might experience some problems. So because of this population today, 179 people, I didn't want to risk it. And that's why we're using another Padlet. So in the chat, you have a Padlet. Once you get into your breakout rooms, I want you to discuss the following. Let me show you the Padlet, sorry. So let me go to the Padlet here. And the Padlet has 3 columns. I want you to discuss about your own ideas to shorten the distance. How can you shorten the distance? 2 activities that have worked for you, and some tools that you want to use with other teachers. You need to discuss in groups and make sure you post only 1 per group, okay? Only 1 contribution per group. So Mark, I think we're ready. We can go to the
Sounds
room.
great.
Give me just 1 moment. Sorry, I'm going to ask maybe, I don't know if you can spot, let's see, Viridiana, sorry. I'm going to choose you, Viridiana. So Mark, maybe you can let Viridiana open her microphone. So Viridiana, what do we have to do? Maybe Viri, you can raise your hand so Mark sees you.
Yes, I found her and I asked her to unmute, so she just needs to click mute. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, the question was, what do I have to do?
Yes, what do you have to do in the breakout rooms?
We have to discuss the 3 questions we have there and only post 1 idea from the group in the Padlet too.
Exactly. So 1 person is the one that's going to be the secretary. Thank you very much, Viridiana. So we can go to the breakout rooms. You're going to have at around 10 minutes. Let's do, it's 5:22. Let's do 5 minutes. Okay.
5 minutes. Okay, guys. So I'm going to send you to the breakout rooms. If something happens with the technology and you get stuck, just wait, and we'll be back here in the main room in 5 minutes. Please be aware of your microphone so that you can talk with your partners. So I'm opening the room starting now. Okay, so rooms are now officially closed, and it seems like everybody is very quickly filling up the main room.
All right, great, everybody. I'm going to share very quickly some of your ideas. Mark and I were talking about. You are going to have access to this. You have the link and you will have the QR code in the presentation in the PDF Mark will send to you, or will give you access to at the end. You can download it. And this Padlet, unfortunately, I cannot have it open for like ever because I only have access to 3 Padlets. That's one of the things in the free version. You only have 3 Padlets, and then you need to start deleting some of the previous Padlets. But the idea here is that you can actually see other people's ideas. Like I'm really, right now, I'm really eager to start looking at some of the ideas that you have here, mostly on the tools. Like I would really like to get to see some of these tools like Stopots or appsorteos.com and maybe how to use it, or gartic.io, etc. You can see that some of the activities that have worked, Jeopardy, quizzes, Wordwall, Menti.com, Puppets. you have a lot of different activities here. And sometimes I think we teachers get so overwhelmed by everything we have to do that sometimes we forget the most basic activities. And when we see this, we're like, yeah, that's right. I hadn't thought about it. I was thinking like so hard, and maybe this is a very simple activity, but it's really effective. Remember that sometimes simple doesn't mean ineffective, right? In terms of classes. So before I go to the Q&A section and giving you or thanking you, I couldn't find the meme that I wanted, or the image that I wanted, but I read this the other day, and I just want to thank all the teachers that are here and all the teachers, whatever they might be at this point, because I read the other day and I think it's really true. Like, some superheroes don't wear a cape, some superheroes teach. And I think right now we're showing the world that we are superheroes, that we adapt, that we go with the flow. If the world is demanding more from us, we actually can go there. So thank you very much. You're going to have there also in the presentation my email address from UNED, my personal email address. If you were wondering about this PowerPoint or these Google Slides, I didn't put it together. That was too much work, like all the backgrounds and all of that. I took it from SlideSgo. Great presentations there. Another tool. And there you have the link for my Facebook page, my YouTube page, and this one that is Pearl Trees. That is my personal collection of websites. You can actually visit it and you will find a lot of different websites there. So now, I don't know if you have any questions. Mark, if you saw questions there, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and I'm going to give you an official thank you in just a moment, but we have probably time for one or two questions, and there were a couple that were already shared in the chat, so I wanted to share them with you right now. Ana Catalina Serrano asked if you could clarify what you meant by touch points and how you connect, how that works. Sorry,
Yeah.
trying to type and talk at the same time.
Yeah, a touch point, it's basically a space for students to be able to contact the teacher on an individual basis, okay? So a touch point can be like office hours. I know many of us here in Costa Rica and in different parts of the world, when you go to college, they tell you there are going to be office hours, and if you need something from your professor, just drop by. And you go to the office, the professor is there, willing to help anybody. So that is a touch point. You can actually open those spaces. You can either, and that is very up to you. You can say, well, I'm going to be in a meeting on Fridays from 8 to 9. If you need, you can join the meeting and ask questions if you feel. And sometimes students are going to use that just to talk a little bit because they miss you guys as well. It's not only us that miss them, they miss their teachers as well. And sometimes they just go there to see, teacher, how are you doing? Great. Oh, that was all I wanted to say. Thank you very much. And that's it. Mm-hmm.
Great, Jonathan. There was one other quick question as well. I think Lee Hackney was asking if Bamboozle can be used in breakout rooms. And I'm thinking maybe the students would have to have it open on their own and there might be multiple Bamboozles going at once. Have you tried something like that?
I haven't, because I usually have I use it mostly for warm-ups, or I use it as exit ticket. Before we finish our class, I do the exit ticket. So I prepare the Bamboozle, and that's what we do. With this particular group at UNED, I did it because we had some presentations going on. And so I wanted to clarify some concepts and make sure they understood. I haven't tried it out, but it's a matter of what I do, and that's a personal recommendation. Now that you tell me that, I'm definitely going to try it. You can open the same Bamboozle in your phone and with the same link in your computer and then in your tablet, or you ask somebody else to open it at the same time and see if it works. I guess it might work.
All right, well, I think that's all we have time for. And on behalf of Centro Cultural Costarricense and Norteamericano, the National Conference for Teachers of English Costa Rica, and the Mark Twain Library, I want to thank Jonnathan Elizondo for his time today and for sharing so many ideas and resources. So If you have your camera on, please show Jonathan, I don't know how you say thank you in sign language. I think it's something like this, right? Or an applause
Thank
so that
you.
he can see that. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I want to share my screen very quickly just to remind you that we have our next talk coming up next month on October 30th. And it will be done by Dr. Keith Folse from the University of Central Florida. You will not want to miss it. At the same time, I've been sharing in the chat links to both the survey, which you will need to complete in order to get your digital certificate, as well as the link to Jonathan's materials. And we'll be sure that we send you that same link to Jonathan's materials with your certificate in case you lose track of it. I also mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that we have a website called the Community of Practice. This is a private site, but if you do the survey, if you complete the survey, whenever you send your results, you will get a link asking you to join the Community of Practice. If you sign up for it, you will then have access to our video library from all of the 24 recorded sessions from our last National Conference for Teachers of English, which was all about teaching online, and from the last 6 or 8 PD talks that we've had. And Jonathan's, we'll make sure we have it edited and posted by early next week. So you definitely won't want to miss out on that amazing resource. So again, you'll find that at the end of the PD talk survey. You'll get that link. And if you have any questions or doubts, just reach out to one of us. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you again, Jonathan. It was excellent.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the people at Centro Cultural, Doña Lili Sevilla, who invited me to be here, and Mark, who has been great help, all the things you do, Betsy, and everybody at Centro Cultural for making this possible and for inviting me. Thank you. Again, all the people that were here, thank you very much.